evidence supporting beta blockers and RAS inhibitors after an acute myocardial infarction has previously been seen in patients with LVEF less than 40%. Now, what is this ejection fraction? It is an appropriate measurement of the percentage of the blood leaving your heart each time it squeezes. Now, do RAS inhibitors have an impact on patients with MI with mid-range ejection fraction? Hello and welcome to Medical Dialogues, your daily dose of health and medical news. I am Dr. Nandita Mohan and I will be discussing about how these RAS inhibitors or the beta blockers after discharge improve outcomes in MI patients with mid-range ejection fraction. There has been an increase in the number of patients with mildly reduced left ventricular ejection fraction in the era of the initial optimal interventional as well as medical therapy for acute myocardial infarction. Now, a recent study that was conducted in South Korea found that the medical therapy with beta blockers or RAS inhibitors at discharge is tied to a better 2-year clinical outcomes in patients with mildly reduced left ventricular ejection fraction after suffering an acute stage of myocardial infarction. The key takeaways of the study were that beta blocker therapy at discharge in patients with mildly reduced left ventricular ejection fraction after an acute myocardial infarction was associated with lower 2-year rates of major adverse cardiac events. Also, the RAS inhibitor therapy at discharge after an acute MI with heart failure with mildly reduced ejection fraction was also associated with lower rates of rehospitalization due to heart failure. Furthermore, the patients with mildly reduced LVEF after an acute MI had better 2-year clinical outcomes if they were on beta blockers or RAS inhibitors at discharge. The findings hence suggested that beta blockers and RAS inhibitors can definitely be considered in patients with mildly reduced left ventricular ejection fraction after an acute myocardial infarction in the era of early coronary reperfusion therapy and contemporary optimal medical therapies. That's all for today. Stay tuned to Medical Dialogues for further updates.
Never miss a medical update from Medical Dialogues. Like, subscribe, and press the bell icon.